France versus Norway, the most one-sided matchup of World Cup 2026, sounds like a simple question, but the deeper you look into this matchup, the more it begins to feel less like a contest and more like a brutal football reality check. Because on paper, this looks like a clash between two European nations, yet in reality, it may represent the extreme ends of modern football power, depth, experience, and tournament mentality. And when the World Cup arrives, it does not care about potential or promises. It only exposes truth. And the truth is that France enter World Cup 2026 not just as contenders, but as a football superpower built by an entire generation of dominance. A squad stacked with world champions, Champions League winners, Ballon d'Or contenders, players forged in finals, pressure, and chaos. While Norway arrive carrying hope, excitement, and one of the most terrifying goal-scoring machines football has ever seen in Erling Haaland. But football history has repeatedly shown us that one star alone does not win World Cups. Systems do. Depth does, experience does, and France have all of it in terrifying abundance. Because when you look at France's likely World Cup 2026 squad, you are staring at a lineup where even the bench could qualify for the knockout stages on its own. A team where Kylian Mbappé is not just a winger, but the face of the tournament. A player entering his prime years with World Cup glory already behind him and hunger still burning. A player who has terrorized defenses on the biggest stages imaginable. And behind him, France don't just have backups, they have alternatives. Players like Kingsley Coman, Ousmane Dembele, Marcus Thuram, players who would be starters for most nations. Then you move into midfield and the imbalance grows even larger because France's midfield is built for control, destruction, and transition. A perfect World Cup combination with physical monsters, press-resistant technicians, and players who understand when to slow a game down and when to kill it in seconds. While Norway's midfield, though improving, still struggles against elite pressing units, still lacks the experience of controlling games against top-tier opposition. And this is where one-sided matches are born, not in goals, but in the moments before them, in the inability to escape pressure, in turnovers that become instant punishment, and France specialize in punishing mistakes. And then there is defense, where France once again look like a machine designed to survive tournaments. Center backs who have played Champions League semi-finals and finals. Fullbacks who can attack and recover at terrifying speed. A defensive unit that understands tournament football is about risk management. While Norway's defensive record against top nations tells a worrying story. Because when Norway face elite opposition, the cracks appear, the spaces open, and against a team like France, space is a death sentence, especially when Mbappé is involved, because World Cup history is full of matches where one team enters believing in balance and bravery, only to be dismantled by pace and precision. And France's pace is not just speed, it's speed with intelligence, timing, and ruthless decision-making. And yet, despite all this, the question remains, could Norway shock the world? Could this be one of those rare World Cup matches where the underdog flips the script? And the answer lies almost entirely in Erling Haaland, because if Norway have a weapon capable of bending reality, it is him, a striker who does not need 10 chances, who can turn half a chance into a goal, who thrives in chaos, and who could punish France if they switch off for even a second. But here is the problem for Norway. France are not a team that allows chaos unless they control it. They have faced Lionel Messi in a World Cup final. They have faced Argentina under unbearable pressure. They have faced teams that live for chaos, and they survived, learned, and evolved. And that experience matters more than talent when tournaments reach their boiling point. And when you zoom out and look at World Cup patterns, one-sided matches are rarely about arrogance. They are about systems colliding, and France's system is designed to suffocate teams that rely heavily on one outlet. Because if France neutralize Haaland, if they cut supply, if they force Norway into wide areas and rush decisions, this match could quickly slip from competitive to catastrophic. Because World Cups are cruel. Once belief cracks, goals follow, and France are experts at sensing weakness.
And the psychological aspect cannot be ignored either, because France walk into World Cup matches expecting to win, expecting to dominate, while Norway walk in hoping to prove something. And hope is dangerous at this level, because it disappears the moment things go wrong. And if France score early, the game plan Norway built over months could collapse within minutes, forcing them to chase a game they were never meant to chase, opening spaces that France would exploit mercilessly. And that is why this matchup feels potentially one-sided, not because Norway are bad, but because France are built for this exact environment, an environment where nerves destroy teams and confidence destroys opponents. And yet, football always leaves room for madness, for moments that defy logic, and that is what keeps this matchup fascinating, because all it takes is one early Norway goal, one Haaland header, one counterattack, one mistake, and suddenly pressure shifts, suddenly France are forced to react, and World Cups have shown us that even giants can wobble. But the difference between wobbling and collapsing is experience, and France have learned how to wobble without falling. And when you imagine this match unfolding, you can almost see the script. France dominating possession without rushing, Norway defending deep, looking for Haaland. The first 20 minutes filled with tension, then a moment of brilliance, Mbappe run, a defensive lapse, a goal, and from there the floodgates threatening to open, because once France lead, they become ruthless, controlling tempo, drawing teams out, striking again when desperation takes over. And this is why many believe this could be one of the most one-sided matches of World Cup 2026, not necessarily in scoreline, but in control, in territory, in chances, in authority. A match where one team looks like they belong on the biggest stage, and the other one looks like they are still learning how to survive it. And when the final whistle blows, regardless of the score, this match may serve as a brutal reminder that World Cups are not about individual brilliance alone. They are about squads built for war, for attrition, for pressure, and France arrive in 2026 as a nation that understands that better than almost anyone else, while Norway arrive as a nation still trying to prove that potential can become power. And that is why this question looms so large in the narrative of World Cup 2026, because it represents more than 90 minutes. It represents the difference between nations built to win tournaments and nations still learning how to survive them. And until Norway prove otherwise on the pitch, this question will continue to echo across football discussions everywhere. Is France versus Norway the most one-sided match of World Cup 2026? Or is this the night football once again reminds us that giants bleed, miracles happen, and no amount of dominance guarantees immunity when the world is watching? And when you push deeper into this France versus Norway World Cup 2026 matchup, what truly transforms it from a normal group stage fixture into something potentially brutal is not just talent disparity, but timing, because World Cups are about when teams meet as much as who meets who, and France are entering 2026 at a moment where their golden generation is no longer inexperienced, but not yet fading, a rare and terrifying phase where players are at their physical peak, while also carrying scars, lessons, and victories from previous tournaments, while Norway, despite their growth, are still a team learning what it means to suffer for 90 minutes against elite opposition, and suffering is unavoidable at the World Cup, because no matter how disciplined your plan is, eventually pressure breaks structure, fatigue breaks concentration, and that is where matches become one-sided, because France do not panic when games stretch into uncomfortable territory. They invite discomfort, they manage it, they weaponize it, and this is something you only learn by surviving heartbreaks and finals, penalties and comebacks, moments where the world is watching and failure is permanent. And Norway simply haven't lived through enough of those moments yet, and that gap in emotional experience can be as decisive as any tactical mismatch, because when France concede possession or allow Norway a brief spell of belief, it is calculated, while for Norway, every attacking moment feels urgent, desperate, like it must be perfect, because they know chances will be rare, and that urgency leads to rushed decisions, misplaced passes, hopeful crosses, and against France, hopeful football is punished mercilessly. And tactically, the more you break this game down, the darker it looks for Norway, because France don't need to dominate the ball to dominate the match. They can sit mid-block, lure pressure, and explode forward in seconds, and that is the worst possible scenario for a team built around a central striker like Haaland, because if Norway push fullbacks higher to support attacks, they leave space behind, and if they stay deep, Haaland becomes isolated, starved, forced to wrestle with center-backs who are not afraid of him, who have faced the best forwards in world football and survived, and this creates a suffocating loop where Norway is constantly choosing the lesser of two evils, while France simply wait for the mistake. And World Cup football is unforgiving in that sense, because one mistake is often all it takes to decide momentum for an entire match. And once momentum tilts, belief follows it, and belief is everything at this level. And when France smell uncertainty, the tempo changes, passes become sharper, runs become more aggressive, and suddenly Norway are no longer defending a plan, they are defending survival. And that psychological shift is where one-sided matches are born, because the scoreboard does not tell the full story. Domination begins